How was the food when you were here? Because I'm a very well-known enthusiast of the food here. I love it all the time.
There was no food when I was here.
Welcome back to Ramblin. I'm Peter Canale here with your co-host Ryan Irving.
Hey guys.
Well, it's been a while. How you guys doing? How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great. It's been a
know,
long time since Ramblin', episode
yeah.
5 with Miss Lieberman. You guys should go check it out. Peter brought back a phrase that hasn't been heard in the English language since I think since the dinosaurs were around, or I don't know, maybe a little before that. I don't know.
Well,
so you guys should check that episode out. It was a pretty good episode.
Today, joining us, we have a great figure in Fordham Prep history and in Fordham Prep now. That is Mr. Ahern.
Woo!
Welcome,
How's it
Mr.
going,
Ahern.
Mr. Ahern?
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Good, very good. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, speaking of old-timey phrases, you brought up one today that that kind of represents how we've been going about trying to get guests to come on the show, which was went through the highway or something. What'd you say? You went through.
What is he talking about?
I don't know what you're talking.
No, you said when we were talking about the story about how we got Mr. Newell on the show. You said something.
I don't know.
Oh, the highways and byways.
Through highways
yes,
and byways.
I did say that. You're right.
Yeah.
See?
It's unusual for me that somebody actually pays attention.
We did have to go through highways and byways to get a guest.
Yes, we did.
In the past 2-3 months of us not having that episode, we have just struggled to get a guest.
Struggled
so many
mightily.
emails. You guys don't even know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're finally very happy to be with Mr. Ahern.
Yeah. And it's not through lack of trying either. It's just been a very long-winded effort.
Yeah.
We've had 2 episodes canceled in the last 2 months. It's been tough. But now that we have you, Mr. Ahern, and I'm very happy to have you on because I had you last year in English 1 honors, and that was one of the greatest classes that I've ever been in. I felt like I learned a lot. I felt like I read a lot of books that I wouldn't have been exposed to. And so my question is, of those books, which one is your favorite that you teach in your course?
Oh, my favorite book is A Prayer for Owen Meany.
That was my favorite. I love that one.
That
Was
was
it?
a really good book.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. It's so deep. Now, I've read it about, well, I can't say I've read the whole book a dozen times, but I've read the whole book 2 or 3 times, and about 3/4 of it all the rest of the times, and I learned something every time, and I learned something from the students.
Yeah.
They always have something that I've never thought of, so it's a wonderful book, wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I've always wondered, like, as an English teacher, I've always wanted to ask an English teacher this. There's so much writing that you have to, read. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I'll turn in an essay, and I'll be like, wow, there's 40-something kids taking this course. Like, my teacher really needs to read 45 essays right now. What is that like for an English teacher, would you say? Like, would you say you enjoy doing all that reading of people's thoughts and stuff like that?
Well, it's enjoyable on 2 levels. It's enjoyable when there's one that's just fabulous. You look at it and you think, boy, this is so beautifully written. Sort of like the stuff that Peter and Colin used to do. But there's also a lot of joy in looking at one and thinking, gee, this one really missed the mark, but there are so many ways that you can make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pleasure in helping somebody to become a better writer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is challenging sometimes to get all of it done.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think one of the things that I always try to do is I always try to plan ahead to try and see if I can have some empty space as soon as that piece comes into me so that I can spend some time doing it. I like to do all mine at once because I think it's fairer to the students. If you do one on Monday and you do one on Thursday, how can you be sure that you're
Grading the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I did like that about your class, because you would do a homework and it'd be like a paragraph or something. And the next day you'd know your grade, like it'd be like a B or whatever, and then you'd have to be like, okay, I did this, wrote this much, wrote about that. Maybe I should change that for the next paragraph I have to write about the next chapter, and then you'd see your growth throughout the course, and I like that a lot.
I'm glad to hear that. Good. It takes a lot of work, but I do believe it's worth it, Peter, and you just made me feel even stronger about that.
Well, you're welcome. And today we actually have a rambling first, even though, only 5 episodes is a lot of firsts for us. But Mr. Ahern came in today. He came prepared. He came in with the little list of things that he would like to talk about. And I'm just curious, what's the first thing
We haven't seen him yet.
on
So.
that list? Cause we
On
don't
the
know
list? Well,
either.
the first thing, it's not the first thing on the list, but it's the first thing that I'm going to talk about.
All right.
And that is that I saw Ryan in Godspell.
Oh, yes.
Great show. Anybody that missed it really missed out on something. And the reason I've seen virtually every show is because I was in the shows here when I was
Seriously?
at the prep.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So
I remember you showed us a picture of you in one of your shows. I forget which one it was. It slips my mind, but I remember you did show us a picture of a production that you were in way back when.
Yeah, it was very different in those days.
Mhm.
First of all, we didn't have this great Leonard Theater.
Oh my gosh, you'll never find a theater like this in another high school.
It's
I swear.
absolutely the truth.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And the fella who it's named after was he was the producer at the time that I was in the shows here,
Mhm.
Father Leonard.
Mhm.
Our shows were not here because there was no here. Our shows were in Collins Theater,
Mhm.
and we had no girls,
Oh wow.
Saw you.
and we had no music.
Oh, so they were just like play. So we still do stuff similar to that. I think like we did Christmas Carol earlier. We had girls, but there was no music.
Yeah,
That's one thing I really wanted to ask you, because you were a student here at Fordham, and then you came in to teach, and you've been here for 45 years, 46 years,
47.
47 years. Sorry. I just want to what's the
I'm
biggest?
impressed. This guy's good.
he did his research.
What's the biggest difference you think from looking at your time as a student here and looking at the time that the students are having now?
This is a much nicer place than the school I went to. I loved the Fordham Prep I went to, but I was a person of that era.
Mm.
So everything that happened in the school sort of went along with the world outside. It was a very academic place. We had great sports, and I'd like to say great theater. But
like to say.
but it was basically an academic institution, and if you didn't perform academically, you were out. It was the theory at Fordham Prep in those days was a few good men.
Mm.
Take in a lot and throw out the ones who don't work.
Mm.
So every semester we had to take final exams, and there would be a list put up in the main hall
Whoa.
of the people who failed the exam.
That would not go down today.
No, that wouldn't work.
And if you failed 3 exams, you had to leave the school. So you could just stand in the main hall and count the names across, and you'd say, well, you'd never see them again.
Wow, that is insane.
And if you failed 2 courses, not just the exams, if you failed the courses, you also had to leave.
Wow.
So, so we would stand down there and say, well, and this went on, including senior year in January. A guy that I had spent 4 years with, I looked up and saw his name 3 times, and I never saw him again.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine in the comments today if you just went downstairs and just saw a list of names of kids that had to go?
Think of what would happen. Kids would be posting on social media and stuff, and then,
Rest in
man,
peace.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I guess that was the social media at the
that's
time.
how it worked.
Although I do think, like, I've talked about this with people, if they posted the grades, like, if they posted people's grades, like, in the comments or something, like, at the end of every quarter or semester, like, I wonder how competitive it would get.
Ooh,
Like,
yeah.
I wonder if kids would be more driven to do really, really well if they knew that the whole school was gonna like see them competing with other students.
Yeah,
Well-
that's not how you should go about your grades.
Exactly,
You should
I'm-
be going about it for yourself.
Exactly.
Not really like, oh,
Well,
I
now
hate
that you
Ryan,
bring
I
that
wanna
up,
beat him.
they also ranked students.
Ooh, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that.
Besides valedictorian and salutatorian, they had like
When you got a report card every like 6 weeks.
Mhm.
I think it was a while ago. Can't be exactly sure, but you'd get a report card, and on your report card, it would have your average and it would have your rank. 1 out of 180, 178 out of 180, so that you knew exactly how you were doing.
I still think that's around in some schools. 'Cause I remember applying for something and they had
Oh, rank.
rank, which I thought was weird because I never had that, but I guess it's still around. I guess we got rid of it because we don't like that.
That would be
That sort
horrible.
of,
That would be horrible.
Well,
Compet-
it's a different world,
Yeah,
and we're interested in different things.
exactly.
I mean, as I say, it was very academically oriented. Now I think we're much more person oriented, and I think the theory now is if you get into Fordham Prep, you're good enough to graduate, and we're going to do everything we can to help you
Because
to graduate.
what's that Albert Einstein quote? If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, like he'll always be a failure.
Yeah.
Like you can't. I think that's a good. That's kind of the values that Fordham Prep has taken recently in recent years, and really try to push that. Like try to find ways for kids to improve themselves through like things like iSTEM or iSTEAM.
That's something like that.
STEM.
I mean, yeah.
Things iSTEM.
You
I don't know.
what?
I don't know what you're trying to pronounce.
No, the engineering sciences, like
I don't know.
all
It's
those
STEM,
sciences,
something like that.
STEM
Yeah.
classes, STEM courses.
But I would say
Like I think,
sorry,
and things like this art reference room, like things like that, I think have really helped a lot of students find what they like. You know.
Well, I think what happened was in the 70s, the Jesuits decided that they wanted to go back to the beginnings. And they went back to Ignatius. That's why we talk about Ignatian things. That wasn't here when I was here. And they looked at how Ignatius wanted to save souls. And we're focused on souls here. We're focused on you.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain academic ability to get in here. But after that, we'd like you to become the best person you possibly can.
Yeah. I think that's honestly so much more valuable than like I would much rather be at a school that's focused on, you know, turning you into the best version of yourself than like just strictly like what grade are you gonna get and like, you know, posting like people's ranks publicly.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a lot more valuable to, you know, like transform someone's character to be a better version of themselves, especially at a Catholic school. I think that
yeah,
kind of promotes like
that, 'cause
Catholic values.
that goes back to all teachings, trying to, you know, be there for your fellow brother. You know, goes back to Fordham's teaching of every man for others. You know, trying to help people become the better versions of themselves, stuff like that. So pivoting very smoothly as we always do here on Rambling. We always talk about movies and TV shows on this show, and I know we were kind like me and Ryan trying to get away from that, trying to diversify, but I can't help but ask you, Mr. Ahern, which is your like maybe not your favorite movie of all time, but like I don't know. A favorite,
I could
like a
never
movie that
choose.
sticks out in your head.
Like we ask all of our guests what their favorite movies are. I couldn't even tell you what my favorite movie is.
Well,
it's a tough question.
Well, I can tell you, I taught film here for 1 year. And the film that I really enjoyed teaching was The Godfather, 1 and 2.
We don't talk about 3.
And well, as a matter of fact, I've seen both versions of 3, and neither of them is really any good. But I enjoyed that tremendously. I think it's very well written. I'll tell you something interesting about it. I watched it being filmed because I worked in Little Italy in Lower Manhattan, where it was filmed, and Marlon Brando was a very well-known actor at the time, and they were filming about 3 blocks away from us, and I said, let's go up and see Brando. So after school, we went up, and I heard. I'm standing there in the crowd, and I'm sort of altitudinally challenged, so I was having a hard time seeing, and all of a sudden I heard, Mr. Ahern, Mr. Ahern. And I looked up, and standing on the 5th floor fire escape was a girl that I taught. And she said, come on up, you can see everything. So I did. I went up to her apartment, and I watched them film the scene where he gets shot, where the oranges go spilling out onto the street.
Wow.
And I was fascinated. I watched them do it over and over and over again. It was really interesting. About 3 weeks later, I was walking to school, and I was held up because there were old cars on the street, and there were some people hiding behind them, and there was a camera there. And these people ran out from behind the cars, guns clicked, and then they went back behind the cars again. And I watched them do that a couple of times, but I had to get to school, so that was the end of it. And when I saw the film, those are the people that were shooting Brando 3 weeks later, 5 blocks away, wholly different time of day.
Wow.
That's editing.
It is editing. You know, one thing about that movie that is underrated is the editing and cinematography.
Cinematography is excellent.
In that movie especially, just like watching the way that they frame Michael Corleone as he changes throughout the movie, I think is amazing. Mr. Lauber pointed it out to us during Latin class, as we do as you do in Latin class.
Why am I not surprised?
No, I loved it because there was one, like, his head was in the shadows, and remember the scene where he pulls the guy in to shoot, like, he's gonna get shot. He sees the people who are about to shoot him, and he pulls somebody away, like, don't move, and then they shoot that guy instead of him. He said that, like, that scene, you know, Corleone was very, you know, he wasn't moving. He wasn't, you know, shaking like the other guy was. He wasn't nervous at all. And, like, that's what it takes to be a true mafia boss like that, like, to be stone cold like that. I think we were talking about one of the gods being stone cold, and, like, they killed somebody. I don't know. It was a very tangential mention of the Godfather, but I loved it. And I think I love conversations like that about how you can see how a person is to the way that they act. You can kind of be inspired by a person by the way that they act, and you kind of see how mean that guy is by just seeing how he's walking down the street, you know?
Now, Peter, the next time you watch that film, there's a scene where he shoots the cop in an Italian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And that Italian restaurant was about 4 blocks from here. It wasn't in Little Italy. It was over by the L, the number 5 train. And I ate in that restaurant, and that is exactly what it looked like, including the toilet.
With the box
where he pulls the chain, what is it, pull chain, and he hides the gun behind it. That's exactly what it looked like. And as soon as that film was completed, they sold. They must have made a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The place that scene was built, that scene was filmed in, that's an amazing landmark. It's a landmark.
Yeah.
It's a landmark.
I don't mean to drive you away from the list, Mr. Ahern. Do you want to keep going through the?
No,
list?
I'm happy to listen to you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm intrigued by that.
I'm more than I just kind of want to know, like, what's on it.
We want to know what's on the list. Well, let academics first. Discipline was very different.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that because I remember
they hit kids when you went to Fordham.
No.
Okay.
You're too old.
No.
No. Like the kids are too old. You're gonna hit a senior. Like, what are you gonna?
I'm sure they hit senior. Not, I don't know, Fordham
No.
Prep.
Actually, there were a couple of teachers who were a little loose with their hands, but it was very unusual.
Mm-hmm.
It was not something that was endorsed.
Yeah. No.
No.
Yeah.
But the person for whom this building is named, Father Shea, he was the dean of discipline, and he was the calmest man you'd ever meet. But there were so many rules. For example, if you had everyone wore crew neck sweaters. If you wore a crew neck sweater, you had to have your tie outside the sweater to show that you had a tie on.
So
is crazy.
This must be very weird for you to see at Fordham Prep.
That is, well, I have to say this is the first year I haven't worn a jacket and tie.
The bow tie.
I love it. I love
forgot
it.
about the bow tie was a fixture because you always have the Fordham Prep bow tie.
I would, yeah. If
I
you didn't
remember
have your
that.
top button,
No,
like
no,
button,
Mr. Ahern always had the Fordham Prep bow tie, and that's like the bow tie is a much safer and better version of the regular tie, but I can't tie a bow tie, so I've never worn one.
I know. Where are you supposed to learn how to tie a bow tie?
I don't know.
I did it from a piece of paper. Nowadays, you'd look on the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean, I've even tried to follow those internet tutorials. I still can't get it right. It always looks like it's got one thing way bigger than the other. My dad can barely do one. Like it's a hard thing. And speaking of ties, I think I forgot how to tie a tie because I haven't had to do it
Oh my gosh.
in
Yeah.
in months. And I have even last year I would have my ties. I would tie them once and then just hang them back up.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I would have
Yeah.
to do it multiple times.
Well, I tied it in the mornings, but I wore tie the first day of school this year, and I'm probably gonna wear it on the last day of school, just to, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
Ah.
it's like a significant thing.
I mean, look at him. He's still in the button down.
Yeah, I used to have this one. Like, I was very specific about my ties last year. Like, I would have one tie that I would wear on Fridays and on the days before breaks. And then if it was like a Monday, and I was just like, ugh, and I would have this one like yellow tie that I just hated wearing, and it would like signify my mood going into the day.
I had one tie. I remember it was a Vineyard Vines tie, and it had chicks coming out of coming out of their eggs and magnets,
Yeah.
because that would symbolize you being a chick magnet, right? Which would also symbolize you being attractive, right? And I lost this tie, and when I tell you, I lost this tie in the locker, the football lockers. I lost the tie, and I
Wow.
was the most sad I've ever been over a piece of clothing.
I know.
'Cause
Well, if
I love
yeah.
that tie.
If I lost my Friday tie, I would be very upset. I love that tie.
Speaking of sports, Mr. Ahern, did you play any sports when you were here at Fordham?
I did not play. I ran track for a while,
Mm.
and I played tennis very, very briefly because it conflicted with the shows.
I was part of that track life for a little bit, as in just one season, as in last like 3 weeks ago. I went to one meet, did not do well. I practiced all the time. It was just running's not for me. I'm a short guy, pretty big. I'm not running around. You know, I'm not very mobile.
Should I run the squirrel theory?
Okay, so Ryan Irving is a crazy person, and that's how you have to be prefaced by this.
I don't really believe this theory.
No,
Just to preface, I just think it could be
It could be possible, though. I don't believe it, but it definitely could be possible. I don't believe it.
I think it's a funny explanation to something that is very apparent here, at least in my opinion. So
okay.
You have the basement, right? The gym floor, and then you have like the commons. I don't think anyone really knows what is on that floor in the middle. Like, it's very like obscure. No one really knows what's in those doors, like what's in those hallways. So, I have a theory that in that floor, Fordham Prep is manufacturing a new breed of squirrel, a crazy kind of squirrel that has never before been seen on planet Earth. And I'll explain a little bit. You can go into the backfield.
Because Ryan believes that the squirrels don't get scared by regular
They're-
people like Ryan.
Normal
Yeah.
squirrels will just run away. Literally, and it's not just me. Any student or faculty member, you could go to the backfield right now. There's always squirrels back there. There's always like 8 squirrels. You could literally go right up to them, and they stare you down. Like, the squirrels aren't afraid of you. Like, you're afraid of the squirrel at that point. Like, they assert themselves.
For everybody at home, Colin is nodding his head in agreement, and I don't know, Mr. Ahern, can you make heads or tails of this? We have 2 believers. I got 1 non-believer. We have 1 undecided.
I'm collecting a community of believers. In this.
Well, I think everybody has fed those squirrels for so many years that
See,
they're not
He just
afraid
answered
of
my question
anyone.
in one sentence.
Exactly. There you go. You feed
Well,
the squirrel. We're not
I'm here
breeding
to officially
squirrels.
announce the Ryan Irving squirrel theory is officially over. Mr. Ahern just gave a completely logical explanation because they had the tent in the backfield, which I miss so much.
Mhm.
That was nice. That
Yeah,
time.
I really like that. And the squirrels would literally just come up to us and just like sit like dogs. They would like sit and wait for us to feed them.
Because people would eat their food out there and they drop the food and they'd be like, "Oh, I have food now."
That's right, there was a student who got chased by a squirrel. Like he literally got chased around like in circles. And also like
Ryan, was that student you?
it was not me. It was not
Okay.
me. If it was me, you guys would know. But also like even freshman year and even this year too, at least 4 times. Like, and I brought this up last episode, which we had to scrap, but
Let's not talk about
yeah.
that.
I'll be like walking into school, just like casually walking. All of a sudden, boom! a squirrel just lands like right in front of me, like above the really, really tall tree. It just jumps down and lands. And it's the same thing. I'll be exiting school, long day, like with my bags. All of a sudden, boom! There's just a squirrel right on, like in front of me.
Squirrels trying to live a squirrel life. Why
They
you
have
gotta
no
why you
fear.
gotta be
They just jump like onto the straight concrete and rocks. So yeah, that's my squirrel theory, guys.
Well, there's one more, Mr. Ahern, if you could believe it, a more controversial theory in the world, besides the squirrel theory. There's a theory held by our producer Colin, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He has this crazy theory that mashed potatoes, right? He believes that you could put ketchup on mashed potatoes and actually eat it without throwing up. And he thinks that they're delicious.
Without throwing up.
He thinks that it's a delicious delicacy. He loves them. Mr. Ahern, I have to ask you, as we've asked all of our other guests, what is your opinion on mashed potatoes with ketchup on them?
Colin, I used to do that when I was a child too.
No!
No!
Mr. Ahern.
Oh my god!
Come on!
Oh my god!
It's not okay.
There's no
It's
way.
Not okay.
Oh my god!
And it's so funny because like I had never even heard of
I've
this,
never
of,
even
like,
considered
of
it.
this idea before Colin. And I
Oh
remember
my!
we were at a gospel rehearsal, right? And they were like,
I would like to give a quick shout out to Mr. Ahern for being the second guest to at least somewhat endorse the practice.
"Thank you,
Well,
Colin."
listen, you're still in the minority.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever have a majority of people that would agree with
I
that.
don't know. Maybe by senior year we will.
How
Who
was the
knows?
food when you were here? Because I'm a very well-known enthusiast of the food here. I love it all the time.
There was no food when I was here.
Well, there you go.
There was no cafeteria.
So how did you eat?
Well,
brought food
Oh, you
from
brought
home.
food.
when I was a freshman, we ate in the bottom of Keating Hall, which was the university cafeteria, and then halfway through, we went over to the Ramskeller, which became Fordham Prep's lunch time.
Okay.
So it was all university food, so it was a little bit better. I would imagine
I
though
don't
that
know if I'd
that-
challenge
I
Aladdin
wouldn't
like
say
that.
that.
I would say though I'm going to guess that the food here is better now than it was
It's incredible.
It's gotta
back
be.
back then.
But you know what? One thing that isn't good is mashed potatoes on ketchup, and that's what you got to take away from this
Yes,
episode.
from every
dear
episode
viewer,
of Ramblin'.
is that mashed potatoes on ketchup not acceptable unless you're Mr. Ahern. I give you a pass.
No, Mr. Ahern, Thursday this week, change your life. Go into the Commons, get the chicken tenders and fries, the barbecue sauce out of the dispenser, which we talked about earlier. We got rid of the ketchup packets, thank God, finally.
We'll
And
save
there's
that for another
the most important part, you need the cookie, the chocolate chip cookie.
They are good.
They are.
Yes. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. They're so
Well,
good.
Mr. Ahern, Colin is subtly signaling us to end the episode, so I'd like
Oh
to
my gosh, that
thank
went so
you
fast.
for coming on.
Peter,
taking
I'm
time
very
out of your
grateful
day.
for the invitation. It was great to see you and Colin again. Ryan, it was great to speak with you.
Yeah, you too, Mr. Ahern.
Well,
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. All three of you cameras, thank you, and have a great day.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to prom.
Oh!